There's nothing as lovely as the sight of a Gothic cathedral façade. So we go, "Oh, that's nice," and then we wander into the cathedral. But are we missing something? The Gothic façade had a set of very specific meanings to the medieval viewer, particularly if you were an educated man. Women tended not to be educated, particularly not in theology, which you'd have to understand to make sense of some of the imagery here. So what I'm going to do quickly here is to give you a whirlwind tour of the Gothic façade, explaining some of those meanings. And I'm going to focus on the French Gothic. The same rules are true for Gothic styles in other countries, but there are local differences. For instance, in England, the façades are longer, wider, flatter, and were completely covered with sculpture, like this one at Salisbury, while in France, the sculpture was usually restricted just to the porches. Well, first of all, let's look at the architectural structure, because that has some meaning in itself. Here's Notre Dame de Paris, the quintessential Gothic façade. Twin towers and a rose window. If you look at Amiens, Laon, Reims, you'll get an impression that the French cathedral doesn't change much. Fast forward to the Renaissance and Laon has two little wedding cake spirelets, but otherwise it's still recognisably a Gothic west front. Then, if we look at Amiens from the side, we can see these huge porches. They're another standard feature of the French Gothic. There are 3 doors, going into the nave in the centre and the aisles at each side. Okay, at Bourges there are 5 doors because the cathedral's got 5 aisles, but that's an exception. And each door has a huge gable on top of it. And again, if you look at other cathedrals, Paris, or Reims, or Laon, you'll see a similar layout. And the doors are where the sculpture really goes to town. This is where the theology comes in. Now, the Gothic cathedral is a work of art that's really trying to be an encyclopedia. It's trying to include everything inside it. And Gothic art loves lists. So we get complete sets, like trading cards, top trumps. We get the virtues and vices, showing you how to behave properly. We get the labours of the months, showing the seasons of the agricultural year. We get sets of the 12 apostles and the Old Testament prophets. And so it goes. Now, usually, each doorway shows us a different view of the universe. For instance, the north door is where we usually see the local saint, and the labours of the months come in here. This is the door that relates to our everyday world, the world we actually live in, day to day. And then over the middle door, we'll probably see the Last Judgment, with Jesus at the top, and the corpses rising out of the tombs at the bottom, ready to be judged. We can see St. Michael weighing souls in balance, and we can see the blessed souls in the bosom of Abraham, and the damned souls consigned to the mouth of hell or boiling in cauldrons. And if you look up into the arch above the door, you can see the orders of angels, saints, and sometimes you can see the elders of the apocalypse, 24 men, usually old men, usually bearded, and always playing musical instruments. They're part of the apocalypse, the story of the last days, and for some reason they're always shown here, while we hardly ever see the riders of the apocalypse on their 4 horses. Then the south door will often be dedicated to the Virgin Mary, so here we'll see stories of her life, or perhaps episodes from Jesus' childhood, like the visit of the 3 kings, or the flight to Egypt. Sometimes the pattern varies. For instance, where the cathedral's dedicated to the Virgin, sometimes she gets the middle door instead. And then running across the whole façade, we might see column figures like these at Chartres, probably the earliest set. And at Amiens, the whole story of the Bible is splayed across the front. There are the prophets, there are the apostles, and even Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Now, we've been looking at ground level for a while, but look up and there's a rose window. From the earliest and most simple style, this is the one at Laon, to the most complex, the flamboyant work like this one at the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, the rose window is a feature of all the great Gothic cathedrals. To the Middle Ages, the circle represented a perfect form. It was a symbol of eternity. And so we have eternity at the top of the façade. Then we have the tympanums of the doors showing the life of Jesus, the Last Judgment, the life of the Virgin, the life of a saint. And then at the bottom we have the church and sacred history from the Bible showing God's providence at work. And then leading directly into our own lives, we can see the labours of the month, the virtues and the vices, scenes of everyday life. So all the way from God and mathematical abstraction right down to killing a pig for the Christmas feast, it's all there. And it's an encyclopedia of how the medieval architect would have seen the sacred universe, with God at the top and men at the bottom and all of the saints and prophets in between. You don't have to be a Christian to find that a compelling vision. Everything is here and everything is in its place. So next time you look at a Gothic facade, you'll understand a bit more about what it would have meant to its medieval audience. And you know what? It will still look beautiful.